Welcome to our session, Global Table, organized for Global Solutions. My name is İhsan Sabuncuoğlu. I'm the rector of Abdullah University in Turkey. It is a great pleasure to have you on this panel titled Global Crisis and Disruptions, the Need for a New Generation of Higher Education Institutions. As you know, we are currently in the middle of a pandemic that affects the entire world in many dimensions, while higher education has been already facing crises and disruptions for several decades. Initially, COVID-19 triggered immediate reactions from all the higher education institutions, adapt distance learning, online methods, internship, mobility, and job placements in virtual space. Now, we need to discuss the mid and long-term solutions that will change education systems substantially to address the key issues such as widening skill mismatch and increasing unemployment. To discuss this topic today, I have the honor to introduce our distinguished guest. The first speaker is Ellen Hazelcorn. She is the founding partner at BH Associates Education Consultants. She is a professor emeritus and Director of Higher Education Policy Research Unit at the Technological University of Dublin. Second speaker is Dr. Dong-Seung Cho, and he's the 15th president of Incheon National University, a professor of emeritus at the Seoul National University. He is also professor at AGU-GSI in Beijing and chairman of Institute for Industrial Policy Studies. The third speaker is Dr. Thomas Forlisha. He is the Director General and Dean of Rain School of Business. He's the member of the chair of the panels for the International Accreditation of Business Schools, AACSB and ICRUS. Today, we will be discussing the two questions or the two topics. The first one is, what are the major challenges and limitations that existing higher education systems facing and will be facing in the coming years? Let me go first to Ellen.
Thank you very much, and thank you all. The pandemic, as has been said, has had a huge impact, changing almost every aspect of our lives. But I think the kinds of changes are likely to affect higher education, rather than Big Bang, we're likely to see the acceleration of existing trends, and underlying weaknesses and inequalities will continue to be exposed. I want to talk about 4 challenges for governments, tertiary education systems and institutions. 1, time to rethink the model of education provision for high participation societies. Worldwide participation is increasing at approximately a rate of 4% a year. We've grown to upwards of almost 20,000 universities in the world, according to the IAU. This is a huge achievement. But despite this expansion, the model of education provision has been largely unchanged. We think about digitalization, but more radical thinking is required, and I'll talk about that shortly. Second of all, we've left too many people behind. While we've had a huge increase in upwards of 49% in many countries participating in higher education, we've paid too little attention to people who do not attend higher education, the other 50%. Access to skills and diffusion of knowledge is what produces inequality, and we need to deal with that issue. because despite years of different types of initiatives, we still have systems that track students into the education system and labor market, reinforcing gender, ethnic, racial, and regional disparities. Third, resourcing systems and institutions. Elite universities with strong bank balances and robust reputations will more easily weather the situation. But we're currently reduced, and this has to do with international students. But too much attention has been focused on one type of university. The top 100 universities listed in the Shanghai rankings represent only 1.4% of all the students in the world. What are we doing about the rest of the institutions beyond the resource-intensive ones, which are mainly the colleges and universities in smaller towns and cities where the overwhelming majority of our students attend? And finally, growing distrust between elites and mass, the rise of hoaxes and disinformation, more people participating, but society becoming more unequal. According to the OECD, income inequality is at its highest level for 50 years. And so even responses to COVID are partisan. It is a role and responsibility of higher education and research to take the lead. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. You mentioned, you underlined the importance of inequality. Thank you very much. And let's move to Dr. Cho.
Well, I believe the challenge can be categorized in three groups. One is the challenge from the eventual customers of the university, that is industry. The second challenge comes from students for the direct, immediate customers of the university education, or higher education. And the third challenge comes from within the university, that is professors and possibly staffs and so on. I believe these three challenges are sometimes positive and sometimes negative. First one, industry. It seems that there is a growing distance between industry and the university. University is trying to maintain its philosophy, sort of existing philosophy of sort of ivory tower, where university constituents want to do what they have been accustomed to, while industry is increasingly dissatisfied with the ways and the results that universities are producing. And that challenge comes with the kind of trend that a growing number of industry, especially big companies, big global companies are creating their own universities rather than depending on the existing universities. The second one is coming from the students. The students today are very different from the students 20 years ago or 40 years ago. They are more attuned to the changes in the technology, especially in IT and so on. And they seem to be less satisfied with the traditional ways of pedagogy and research results coming from the university. So how we satisfy these students whose profiles are very different from the past, that is another challenge. The third one, I believe, comes from the university, within the university. While professors want to stay as authentic professors, but nowadays, with this growing dissatisfaction from the industry and from the students, there's a need to sort of align the professor's profile with the industry and the students' demand. But professors do not change. How can we sort of align professor's profile with the expectation of the customers from outside? I believe these three challenges.
Thank you very much. You pointed out the existing problems before even the COVID-19. Universities are disconnected from the the industry from the business. That's what you you underline. And also students are unhappy and unsatisfied. That's what the second point. That's excellent. And the third one is faculty. Faculty is disconnected from the world, disconnected from each other. Yes, Dr. Thomas Porlisha, sir, what are your ideas, your recommendations? What are your views about the challenges? Yeah.
Yes, I think higher education is at a crucial turning point. For years, we have been talking about a more entrepreneurial, connected, and societal impactful academy. The use of large audiences had been regularly proscribed as a source of boredom for our students. The reduced attention span of students required totally new educational scripts and new narrative. Learning modes are assumed to be increasingly experiential, flipped, collaborative, peer-to-peer. For a long time now, we have also been told that the use of EdTech has exploded. Until then, all this was played out in projects, in experiments, in advanced innovation hubs in our institution with a carteron of scout teachers. I think with the pandemic, and as far as I know, that's the only quality I would like to acknowledge for this virus. We had to dive all together into this evolution. In March, I made the decision to take all our courses out online, as many colleagues around the planet. It took us 7 days to get our 100 core professors and 220 affiliates to switch to online teaching urgently. We then designed the Flex project to develop an environment capable of teaching students present and distant in classrooms, equipped with new solutions that provide sound and visual comfort and the functionality of the Teams room. And we generalized this capacity throughout the campus and trained our teachers all summer long with the support of e-moderator students. We practiced e-live teaching, if you want. Some people talk about iFlex pedagogy. Just a week ago, we carried out an in-depth study on more than 1,300 students, and we realized that our students were largely satisfied with the courses and the teacher support attached to their alma mater. But at the same time, they were unhappy, frustrated, and angry sometimes, worried about their future, and especially anxious that the value of their degree would not be the same and that their future success would be in jeopardy. I think that the closure of a campus is less about the impossibility of taking courses than about the breakdown of a social bond and an intense social life that creates the conditions for self-confidence, relational capital, permanent experimentation of one's capacity for commitment, a ritualization of multiple experiences leading to autonomy, and finally, a capacity for self-thinking and creativity. And that's the way we can educate unframed thinkers.
Thank you very much, sir. Now let's move to our second question, which is, what would be your suggestions of innovative and concrete higher education approaches and models to be implemented by G20 leaders in the form of policies to overcome these challenges you stated earlier? Again, let me start with Ellen first.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, I have 6 propositions for action. The first, ensure a more coordinated tertiary education system. This is a lot of countries are looking at this. This is about a system approach, ensuring collective impact and economies of scale between a diverse set of post-secondary institutions, working together with innovative governance arrangements, arranging for a new social contract between higher education and society. Secondly, rethinking our current model of provision and teaching and learning. We have all talked about moving and the surge to digital platforms. Online hybrid provision should be mainstreamed, but we must go further. Work-based work-informed learning has been something associated with VET, but it is in itself part of tertiary education, and increasingly students want this. Secondly, innovative modes of delivery, learner and career pathways, shorter and different types of programs, new forms of credentials. Credit accumulation and transfer systems can be introduced at a national level, competency-based education, looking at the involvement of enterprise and civil society more directly in terms of looking at programs, internships, advising, research projects, and so on. The UNESCO Global Convention on the Recognition of Qualifications adopted in 2019 should be approved by all governments. It would be the first legally binding UN treaty on higher education and very important. And all this would begin to move, facilitate mobility and facilitate a shift from traditional time served to just-in-time education. Thirdly, the civil university agenda. Many countries and institutions are looking at this. The university having a role, a formal role, structured role with other educational institutions, business and civil society, looking at their society in which they live and developing a shared and robust analysis of opportunities and needs. Fourthly, sustainability. And I use the term sustainability, it's more holistic than funding, because adopting a systems approach means that we need to avoid a strategy that's based around survival of the fittest. And that raises questions for policymakers and institutional leaders about the balance between different types of providers, public and private, and most crucially, beyond universities to incorporate the rest of the tertiary post-compulsory system. And indeed, if we want to talk about funding, a lot of talk is there about free university education. I propose instead focusing on universal preschool and the first 2 years of post-secondary education, whether that enables entry as the first 2 years of your education, your 4-year program, a VET or whatever, but 2 years, and let's get people into education and into work. Fifth, and to be controversial, broadening the concept of excellence and rejecting rankings. I worked a lot on university rankings and have done so over the last 20 years, beginning with the OECD. There is no evidence that rankings have a meaningful impact on improving quality, and there's no correlation between rising in the rankings and making a significant contribution to society or the public good. The G20 should warn against using rankings to inform policy or strategy at the governmental or university level. And lastly, it is time to strengthen multilateralism in higher education. We have lots of examples of collective international work going on. The search for the vaccine is the most recent, but the human genome and so on, the ISCED initiative and so on. But there is no international forum that brings together higher education with ministers, civil servants, and other organizations to discuss key issues of global concern. Now is the time to establish an international assembly for higher education and global science.
Thank you, Ellen. You are really on time. Thank you. Let's get the recommendations and suggestions from Dr. Cho.
Let's move to the education field. Where in the world, there is a growing number of these neo-boutique universities, which are sometimes universities which are not, like Singularity universities in the United States, Minerva schools, you name it. These, École 42 in France, these universities are taking away the high school graduates from existing universities. They don't have to be universities to attract people away from universities, as far as they meet the expectation of the young students, as far as they meet the expectation of industry, which are what they do. I believe that Nowadays, I believe there are at least a few hundred universities in the United States, and there are about 40 universities in Korea, which are created by industry, by consultants, by some people with some ideas, even professors. Some professors create universities in order to make sure that universities align, sort of meet the expectation of the industry and students. So this is the challenge. And International University has this kind of dilemma. That is that from traditional university and from neo-boutique university, there is a kind of challenge in terms of legacy as well as practicality. So in order to cope with this challenge, we try to use this combination and permutation with neo-boutique universities which do not have a sort of richness of the coverage of the majors. We can meet the challenge with the combination of different majors in humanities, social science, and natural science, and engineering, and so on, against traditional universities with permutation sequence. Let me show you what this means. In terms of combination, well, we are combining liberal and social sciences and natural and engineering sciences. These different disciplines get combined. Certainly academia industry is another, but permutation is more important, and especially permutation by reverse order. For example, in many, among the academics, there is some move that professors and scholars in engineering and natural sciences are taking some disciplines of liberal science and social sciences, but not the other way around. But at International University, we make sure that professors in humanities, professors in liberal arts, they take natural science and engineering as their second major and combine them to do research in convergence, which is very difficult. But if they overcome this difficulty, then they become uniquely different from all other sort of scholars in other universities or in other parts of the world. That is exactly what we do. What only one university means is this. This is what comprehensive research universities are doing. They cover everything in all fields. And then there are some universities which are called sort of intensive research universities. Their focus is narrower, like engineering or businesses. Yet professors have perfect freedom to choose whatever they want. At International University, we have a very different approach. That is that although we are general university and comprehensive university, we have chosen some narrowly defined focuses, such as bio. So in the name of bio, all professors are gathered, not only in natural science and engineering, but in humanities and social sciences and so on. So professors in English, literature, conduct researches into biology. Professors in history works with professors in biology to develop some research papers and so on. So that is the kind of strategy we use, that is permutation by reverse order. And then education too. What we do is matrix college. This is what we do. Well, this is traditional approach of running university. We have 54 majors in all fields, and students take 42 credits as their compulsory courses. But then we ask companies, industries, government, and other universities come to our campus and create their own major. So Samsung, for example, Samsung creates Samsung Semiconductor department at International University. POSCO creates a new major and department of steel industry on campus. This is what we call campus company within campus, or campus company on campus. That way, students learn not only the traditional fields and major, but also the majors which are sort of designed and run by the industry. So this is another combination. And then we certainly put emphasis on the majors and departments created by the companies. That way, students can experience a unique combination and permutation of different majors. This is what we do.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah. Let's move. Let us move to Thomas. Dr. Porlisha, we would like to listen to you about the suggestions and recommendations to G20 leaders about the higher education as well as the education in general.
Well, the experience of the pandemic has the advantage of opening our eyes to all the potentialities of the evolution of education, in higher education in particular. I see four lessons in 4 lessons. The first lesson is that we must probably leave the experimental approach and prefer a more global dimension of academic resilience. The ability to implement emergency plans, certainly, but even more agility and the new capabilities of our institutions. The second lesson is that we must now maintain our focus on the ability to innovate in the curriculum of our programs and the script of the courses we deliver. To make an analogy with the movie industry, we need to move from a long film format broadcast on television to a very fast-paced series. This course, which has become a series, will be watched by our students on several devices and in omnicanality, a classroom to which one can choose to connect remotely, group work that takes place in a box on campus, or in a Teams or Zoom session, or in immersive spaces with our avatars. The key is to intelligently interconnect all these devices. Well, the third lesson is that higher education professors can go back to school. We often imagine them focusing exclusively on their research activities. Realize that they have enjoyed participating in training sessions on collaborative platforms, teleworking meetings with their colleagues to reorganize teaching. The job of teacher and researcher must reintegrate pedagogical innovation as an essential dimension. More than ever, the impact of scientific and intellectual productions is vital, and therefore the ability to disseminate them in multiple ways adapted to different audiences. This brings me to a fourth and final lesson. The campus as a place and the classroom must be thought differently. Our classrooms have become platforms for dissemination and discussion, physical spaces connected to the internet and the world of work. More generally, a campus is a place to live, open, whose role is an extraordinary life experience with a very human, multicultural dimension. More than ever, we need bricks, but without making walls out of them. These campuses must be able to twin up with each other across the planet, thanks to the very high-level digital resources that we are able to acquire and develop in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Thomas. I think you had you are pointing out the fact that role of instructors, role of faculty members and the students must change. And also, as you pointed out, the classrooms as well as the campuses must be living environments. And thank you very much for your recommendations. Now it is, I think that time to wrap up our session, and I really thank you very much to each one of you for sharing your thoughts, experiences, and best practices on our topic. I think we made a very valuable contributions and recommendations about the current situation of higher education and on what the next years will be. And in summary, what I can say is, I think that we encourage the G20 leaders to embrace these suggestions that we made today for change in order to create new visions and policies. This would make higher education more relevant, flexible, inclusive, equitable, and capable to prepare the new generation to face the many global challenges awaiting them. I thank you very much again, Alan, Dang Sung, and Thomas, for your really valuable contributions, and wish you the best for your future activities.